Drilling fluids touch just about everything in the drilling process. We're here to deconstruct the drilling process and drilling fluid concepts to provide a deeper understanding of our industry. In each episode, we'll share information, talk to interesting people, and maybe share a few stories along the way. Welcome to the Flowline, a production of AES Drilling Fluids, brought to you by Matt Offenbacher and Justin Gauthier.
Hey everybody, welcome to 2026 and a brand new episode coming hot off the press. Here we are, the Flowline podcast, Matt and I. Know if you guys are getting bored of the host, well, good news, we're not changing, so you get more of us for this year.
Exactly.
And Matt, welcome to the new year. Blanket question, how's the new year treating you for the first 6 days or however many days it is?
So far, so good. I can feel the avalanche of everybody getting back and being slammed with work.
Yeah.
My kids have gone feral and they need to go back to school and be re-domesticated because they are destroying the house. Although it has been a very fun holiday with lots of things that, a couple of boys, tackling and running around, breaking things, all that. So that's been really good. How about yourself? You got the whole crew, the little ones, first Christmas.
It was good. So New Year's been good. It's just kind of overpour from last year, right? It's just kind of pick up where we left off before the holidays. So, nothing new, crazy. I'm not one for New Year's resolutions. So if everyone's like, oh, I wonder what any New Year's resolutions, I'm one for just kind of doing what I've been doing for the last decade anyway. So don't really have anything new on that front, but yeah, same thing. Kids, it was nice. So our kids aren't in school today, and I knew my wife was going to have it with the kids today. Unfortunately, my son got invited to practice with his baseball team. I was like, if you want to come, we're going to be at the fields. And so my wife was like, absolutely. So Ace is out there grinding out in the baseball fields right now, and I don't know what Royce and the rest of the other little ones doing, but overall things are good. And to your point, holidays are nice, but man, when you got kids or between toddlers and teenagers, it is just it's full tilt.
Yeah.
And they get very restless. And so, but nonetheless, holidays were great, and I'm ready to get back to it. And when you love your job and the people you work with, you're excited. Most people are like, oh, the holidays, I gotta go back to work now. I wish it was another week. And it's like, I kind of disagree. I
missed people. It's great seeing everybody. So
yeah, it is. And then just getting out and, I've got a bunch of customer meetings and coffee meetings and just kind of get that going again and catch up with customers and see what the new year brings. Obviously we've kicked off the new year with an interesting, endeavor with the whole Venezuela thing. I don't know.
It sounds like on my bingo card.
Yeah, it wasn't. And I've been trying to read a little bit into it. My mother-in-law was over yesterday, and of course, it was like, oh, I can't believe they went and just kidnapped this Maduro guy and his wife. And I was like, do you know any of the details behind all this? And she's like, well, not really. I'm like, okay. So we did some research and kind of educated her on what's the background here.
Yes.
But nonetheless, it sounds like a big nothing burger with regards to oil prices, Matt. What are you seeing? And because you're obviously tied into reading a lot on this stuff too.
I would say so. I think there's sort of the people that I would say, like you said, nothing burger. I would say is probably. I don't want to criticize anybody, but say probably the more informed response. Just by way of, you'll see a lot of graphs say, look, Venezuela used to produce 3 million barrels a day, and look at all their reserves. Their stated reserves were, increased tremendously during a pretty corrupt time for the country. And so how much of that is economic, whatever, they have a ton of oil. There's no question. The other part of it, though, is, I had the fortune of getting to know a number of Venezuelans, this is when Chavez was kind of taking power, and they all fled. It's I think at least 8 million people have left the country. It's awful humanitarian situation, all those things. But if you just focus on the oil field, there's very limited access to expertise, material. Nothing is structurally changed from hey, how are we going to do this technically and manage the sort of challenges on the ground, the local issues, potential corruption, those sort of things. And, somebody pointed out that, I think it was Ramallah Field in Iraq was estimated to be able to produce 3 or 4 million barrels a day. And it does about 500,000. And so I think that it's easy to come up with these huge exaggerated statements, but the fact is, I think it's going to be a long time before anybody's really going to be able to get in there and streamline.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it really affects much this year.
All else equal, I mean, in my mind, it would be a bearish thing for oil prices, because if they do want to increase supply, I mean, ultimately, if everyone else keeps producing the same amount, like, because there's so much, potential reserves there, that if someone like, some of the American big companies go in there and start producing, well, it's could be an outcome, is it just being sort of downward pressure on oil prices, right?
That's the argument to be made, right? And there's questions about, okay, if you were able to get all this heavy crude from Venezuela, then maybe you wouldn't need it from Canada. And so, would they have to look to the coasts and exporting? There's all kinds of questions, but I don't think there's a lot of answers. And I would say that, 20 years ago when I started my career, they were dealing with a lot of challenges under much more stable conditions.
Interesting.
And so I would just say, and I mean, there were some really smart, great people who were there who are no longer there.
Yeah.
So I just think it'll be very challenging. Obviously, I hope the situation ends up, and Venezuela used to be a very prosperous place, and hopefully it can be restored and even better.
Yeah.
But we just know how that's never a straight line.
Yeah.
So,
well, a beautiful place with the right leadership, and hopefully can build themselves back to being a prosperous country.
I hope so.
Anyway, moving on to something more local here, because I don't think that's going to affect your and I's job anytime soon. But when we talk about drilling fluids, one of the folks inside AES here brought up a good question and just a topic idea, and said, I haven't seen an episode on drilling beads specifically, and if you have, it's been a while. And lo and behold, I don't think we have done one. If it has, it's way
It's
back.
been quite a while.
Yeah, we'd have to dust off the old, the old episode bank. But drilling beads, something that are used very commonly for a number of different reasons. And so, if we unpack that, I think it'd be good for the listeners to kind of get an understanding of the benefits, some of the considerations, how and when you use them, and hopefully learn a little something along the way. What do you think?
I think it's great. Good fundamentals, nuts and bolts, and something we haven't talked about in a long time.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Well, let's get going with what is the description of drilling beads?
I mean, I think the easiest way to characterize them is a mechanical lubricant that's a sphere, if you think about it, between two areas, very limited contact surface, right? So we're reducing the contact area, kind of like a ball bearing would, to lower friction. And so it's basically an effective way to lower torque and drag across. And I think it goes back to, you can use them in so many different ways, right? So it may be, one of the questions was, okay, where are they best used? Like, depending on the type of beads, which we'll break down here shortly, you could use them just to like try and kick off and do some directional work in the lateral. Keep in mind that generally they're still, they are, everything's subject to gravity, but just relative to, you drop a bunch of beads in the vertical, they're going to go south pretty quick.
Yeah.
And what you have to do is get this stuff in between the contact areas. So it's not uncommon. You might spot these when you're sliding. That's to me, that's one of the most common cases. Is we'll actually just spot a pill or sliding to try and get good tool face and make our adjustments without having to do too many corrections. And then another very common one is just to spot some across the open hole before we run casing.
Yeah.
Just as a little bit of insurance. So or even to it for a trip where you might 8 or 12 pounds per barrel. Throw that in there. Sometimes we'll use them in sweeps. So just drilling ahead, and then we could go crazy, and we could put them system wide.
Right.
And that's where, I mean, those are, I guess there's the having a pallet of beads out there, and then there's the like having a bunch of beads in your system, constantly replenishing them, a bead recovery unit. We'll break all that stuff down here shortly, but the goal is you want those things, especially in a drilling situation, you want to mash these beads into the filter cake or up against the formation so they kind of stick there, and you want to deplete some because you want them to be stuck in areas where pipe is going to come into contact and it's going to lower surface area versus coming into contact with the wall of the wellbore.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, it's a lot of this stuff has been sort of, these mechanical lubricants over time have been somewhat, at least in my experience, somewhat subjective on whether or not they're working.
Yeah.
But there's, lately it seems like a lot of folks are, measuring data more closely and seeing the benefit in some of this stuff. And I think it's a function of just how much we've extended the lateral lengths over time. And so something like this will become more and more common, I would think, as we keep pushing the, 3.5, 4.5, whatever mile laterals that we continue to push. And so, again, it's an interesting conversation. And I'm just seeing and hearing more and more people ask about beads and just other means of mechanical lubrication. But with that said, let's go through the different types of beads and sort of the sizes.
Yes. And I want to clarify, when we talk about drilling beads or beads as a lubricant, there are also things like hollow glass spheres. We did an episode a long time ago about those used to lower mud weight.
Yeah.
If you use ChatGPT, which I did just for a laugh, it will tell you that these beads are lost circulation material. They're perfectly spherical. They don't really do a lot of great packing. But, there's different sizes. And so, the original, you would get like glass beads. The big consideration with any of these is how strong are they, because if you smash them, they're no longer effective. So then you go to ceramic. Well, ceramic beads don't crush necessarily as much, but they're obscenely abrasive. And so then you have another situation. And so where you see most of the action now is copolymer beads.
Okay.
And basically what they're going to break down, regardless of what it is you're looking at crush strength and size. And obviously a bigger bead, less contact area, that sort of thing. But in recovery perspective, that sort of thing. Too fine a bead and or too big of a bead, when you get into like keeping them in or out of the shakers, that's where sizing may have an impact. But crush strength, it's not just, hey, is this going to be able to handle regular drilling operations? Think about like stick slip and stuff like that, where in the same way, if I smash a piece of pipe against this, does it just break into smithereens? Does it deform? What happens and at what pressure? And so I think crush strength is probably one of the more interesting ones, because I think the lower quality stuff, and this goes back to, kind of your point of checking your data. Mm-hmm. I think this is where, okay, I can get something cheaper that's maybe not as resilient, and who will know the difference, because beads are beads, right? So that's a quality control element that's worth looking into. But in the grand scheme of things, we spend plenty of episodes talking about, liquid surfactant lubricants.
Yeah. Because
we use those a ton. The issue is, we've talked about the compatibility concerns, how they play with other things, where the nice thing about beads is it's a mechanical lubricant, so you're not worried about chemical interactions. It's just an inert solid you're adding,
right.
Which, there are some effects of solids, but there's no reaction taking place. And we can see where they work. Like you said, there's no question in the right application this is a great solution.
Yeah.
Not to be overlooked.
Do you see it? And for the audience that may be wondering if they haven't used it, but Matt, what can you tell us about yield point and plastic viscosity if you're using this? A lot of it may get screened out, but do you typically see or have to adjust for any beads in your mud tests?
Yes. So it will raise your plastic viscosity, and some of this depends on size, because a lot of times if you're running a lot of beads, or at least when I was running a lot of beads, we had to sieve the mud to get properties, because the beads themselves would stick between the bob and the sleeve of the viscometer, and give you just couldn't get consistent numbers. Yeah. So yes, they absolutely can, and I mean they're solids, right? So they're gonna affect your PV, they're gonna affect some other things, and but hopefully the upside of the lower torque, helps you on that front.
Right. Well, like any good product, it comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit of the disadvantages.
Well, I mean, I think quality beads aren't cheap. And this goes back to, like, if you know where you need to use them, they can be great, right? Because it's like, I just need a spot so I can slide, and, that's all I'm going to use it for. That's like a, low dose, solve a specific problem. Mm-hmm. When we get into running whole systems, because of the cost of beads, now it becomes economic, where we have to consider a recovery system. Right. Which now you're talking about equipment, usually a couple of shakers, a tank, hydrocyclone setup, because what you're trying to do is separate out the beads and keep the cuttings out. Inevitably, that also requires an operator, so you're talking about more people. Yeah. One of the big things that eats at me too is what kind of people you're able to get to work a bead unit. This isn't the most premium job in the oil field. And so I think we've talked about, like, with solids control, some customers don't want to pay what it takes to have a sharp hand out there who's really minding their business and making sure that you get the best performance out of the equipment. Yeah. So you're adding people, you're adding equipment, you need that backyard space. That can be a pretty significant downside. And no matter what, you're going to throw some beads away. So, sometimes I've read, a good running unit will get you about 70% of the beads back that you're using. Okay. So you're continually replenishing. And, I mean, the efficiency I have seen varies by mud type. So when I've asked people their opinions about, like, hey, in the DJ we use them and they work great. And it's like, well, you're drilling with water. And it's really easy to separate water cuttings and beads. The beads tend to have a lower specific gravity. They'll float. You can do other things, but, like, there's no viscosity in trapping the fluid. It's not getting mixed in with a bunch of bayrite. Right. And so your fluid type can impact the performance of the recovery unit itself. And so I know that all of that stuff can come together and add up to be like a pretty penny that you might say, okay, let me go back and look at what liquid lubricants do, and or maybe I run both and dose down on one. I think we're starting to see some of that stuff too, where it's like, okay, well, I want a lubricant and I want beads. Have it your way.
That's right. Lastly, what are some other considerations that we'll have to think about before deploying either beads or in the entire bead recovery type system?
The one that, I mean, you already touched upon this, Justin, is I think we really need to scrutinize the data. Mm-hmm. Let's mark when we added the stuff. Let's look at the EDR. Let's see where our trends are. Like, it's all in there. And the fact is that we still have these sort of, well, I think they worked. Well, I don't think they worked. And I think we should be able to visualize that pretty clearly, and put a real dollar number into this. And then we can decide, hey, you know what? I only need sweeps. Right. I don't need all this other stuff. Or absolutely, the whole kit and caboodle pays for itself. You want to do this. I think we get more sort of blanket, like, beads work, beads don't work. Yeah. Beads are a hassle. And it's like, no, I really think that where we are in shale especially is we're at a mature place where we should be nuanced enough to be able to pick our battles. Yeah. That's where I hope we can get to.
Yeah. No, that's true. And a lot of the operators who have scale, and by that I mean like a large rig count, we've got a client who, if it meets the criteria, they're automatically doing beads and bead recovery at a certain concentration. It's like, if it's this bench, with this lateral length, with this hole size, it's just an automatic because they've done the study and making sure, and they've done the cost benefit analysis. And but if you're a onesie twosie rig company with running just 1 or 2 rigs, and you may either lean on the offset data that we have, or you may say, we'll just do it conventionally, and if worse comes to worse, maybe we'll try it. But
start throwing them in.
But fortunately, with just the sheer amount of volume that of work that we have, fortunately, we can kind of help dictate some of that as well. So
yeah, I think and like I said, like the data loggers, I think we lean so much more into those. I think the other consideration is more of a practical consideration, and that is just mainly. We see that there can be too much of a good thing.
Good point.
We've seen where I'm really nervous about getting this casing down, put 15 pounds per barrel. And what ultimately happens, and I've heard people joke about this, we go to run casing and our torque is actually worse with beads than without. And in all likelihood, what's going on is your float equipment is scooping up mountains of beads off the bottom of the well, and it's all packing you off, and you're just working through it to get to bottom. And so in those situations, obviously, it's like, okay, it's overkill. It's actually hurting us and not helping us. So I think just be mindful of scenarios like that. Yeah. I think most of the time it happens on casing running, but it can happen under a lot of different environments. I mean, if you go crazy, it's, we're not sliding very effectively. Like, add some more. Well, eventually you're going to have a system of beads. It's not going to help you.
Right.
So I think, and that can go tie in with the data sets as well, I would say. So,
yeah. No, that's a good point. More is not always better. There's sort of that crossover. But cool. Again, good conversation. Kind of focusing on one specific product is always nice. We can get a little bit more detail. But if any of the listeners out there have any more questions or want to get into into more detail, obviously happy to chat about that. But nonetheless, they're a great tool in the toolbox, as we like to say. And
absolutely.
Besides that, man, I don't have anything else, man.
No.
That's a wrap, huh? Yeah. We'll save it for the beginning of another episode. I was going to ask you for what's coming down the pipeline for 2026 that you're excited about. But stay tuned for the next episode. Maybe we'll get into stuff that's perking Matt's interest and things to look forward to. But before then, folks, take care. Always check out the LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach us on LinkedIn or at the Flowline podcast at aesfluids.com. Website, I think we're revamping that, aren't we? Or did we?
We revamped that this past year.
Well, I know we did, and for some reason I thought we were doing it again.
I would have to check.
Okay.
But I think it looks pretty good, but I'm always open to improvement.
Right. No, it is. It's awesome.
We are doing a lot of internal website stuff.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's going to be amazing if you work for AES.
Yeah. Hopefully the resumes don't hit you in the face, Matt. But nonetheless, folks, take care. Happy New Year. And we look forward to another amazing year of the Flowline with just a ton of good information and hopefully a lot of good listener feedback and questions. Until next time, stay tuned.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please tune in next week for another exciting episode of The Flowline. And remember, may your returns always be full and your trips always smooth. Views expressed in this program belong to participants and not their employees. The program is for informational purposes only and cannot take the place of seeking professional advice. Copyright AES Drilling Fluids.